These lids don't.
Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Finance Committee of the New Haven Board of Alders. I will begin, as always, by reading the published notice. Aldermanic Notice, New Haven. The Finance Committee will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 9, 2026 at 6 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chambers, 165 Church Street, New Haven, to act upon the following. 1. Workshop to receive a briefing from the assessor concerning the grand list of the city of New Haven. 2. Workshop to receive a briefing from the Office of Policy Management, Budget and Grants on the annual budget for fiscal year 2026-2027, starting July 1, 2026. Item 3, LM 2026-0041, Order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven, authorizing the mayor to enter into a 4-year lease agreement with DLL Finance LLC for club car golf carts and related service. Item 4, OR 2026-0005, Ordinance Amendment to Appropriating Ordinance Number 1, reclassifying positions within the Labor Relations Division, Labor Staff Attorney positions number 8006 and number 25001 to Senior Labor Relations Counsel and Labor Relations Associate, respectively. Item 5, LM 2026-0060, Order to read and file the updated budgetary and financial reports for the month of January 2026 in compliance with Article 8, Section 5 of the Charter. These items are filed with the city clerk and may be inspected at room 202, 200 Orange Street, New Haven. Per order, the Honorable Adam Marchand, Chair, attest Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance at 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY. Public comment/testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Meeting can be viewed on Board of Alders' YouTube page. We'll now have introductions of committee members, starting to my right.
Alder Jeanette Morrison, Ward 22.
Alder Sal Punzo, Ward 17.
Alder Adam Marchand, Ward 25, Chair.
Alder Leland Moore, Ward 18.
Anna Festa, Ward 10.
Taisha Walker-Myers, Ward 23.
Thank you, colleagues. I also see in our audience Alders Caroline Smith from Ward 9, and I think I saw Alder Mandy Martinelli from Ward 8, at least briefly. I thank everybody for being here. This meeting kicks off our annual budget process. This is the first of several meetings that will occur over the months of March, April, and May. Colleagues will see in their packets a loose sheet of paper with the complete schedule of all of our meetings for this budget cycle. This sheet of paper is also on the table next to the wall to my right for members of the public who wish to see what is next in our calendar of meetings. Tonight, we also have a monthly Finance Committee meeting. So after our 2 budget-related workshops, we will have 3 voting items as part of our monthly budget, a monthly finance schedule. When folks come forward to give a presentation or to offer testimony, we invite them to come forward. When I ask them to come forward, I invite them to give their names and addresses for the record. And that applies to anybody who comes forward to speak with this committee. If you have a cell phone or pager or some other device that makes noise like a ringtone, please turn that off or put it on silent mode. We love ringtones, but not during the Finance Committee meetings. and not in these chambers. If you need to speak with someone, either on the phone or someone here, please take that outside. The acoustics are such that if you're speaking to the audience, it makes it more difficult for us to hear up here. I'd like to invite our two recently arrived colleagues, please, to introduce themselves. Just the two of you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Richard Furlow, Ward 27.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Evelyn Rodriguez, Ward 4.
Thank you very much. So, without any further ado, let's start with item 1, an update on the grand list from our acting assessor. Please come forward. Looks like you might have some paper for us. No? It's a
that's for
verbal
me.
presentation, okay.
That's for me.
Name and address for the record, please.
Alex Bulling, Acting City Assessor, address 6 Pequot Avenue, North Haven, Connecticut. Thank you. Good evening, Chair, and to everyone else on the committee. You guys doing all right tonight?
Thank you for being here.
So as you know, I'm here to do a overview of the grand list, and I'll just get right into it. As you all know, each year the assessor is tasked with signing the grand list in January, providing figures of the city's taxable base, which are later used in the formulation of the city budget. I'll first describe the list as it was signed on January 31st, 2026, and next explain some of the drivers of the list's growth. The gross taxable list was $10,185,988,312, with exemptions in the amount of $927,697,632. What's important about that is the net figure. And the net figure is just under 9.3 billion, with the number being 9,258,290.68. That number is about 2.5% above the number from last year's grand list. And
Acting Assessor Pullen, are the numbers that you're reading, are they also in this budget book on a certain page that we could locate? Because I think colleagues might like to see the numbers that you're reading.
215.
Page 215? 2-15. Thank you, because it's a lot of numbers.
they're big numbers, and what really kind of matters are the trends and not the actual numbers, but the grand list is available. It's filed with the city clerk. We have it in our office, and we will provide it to anyone should they wish to actually look at the list. But this, as I said, is kind of just an overview to let you know where the list is and kind of what is driving it.
Okay, thank you.
So the grand list is typically flat between revaluation years, which this year, grand list 2025, is in between revaluations. And that's because most new construction projects, which are initiated, are exempted at 100% for the first 2 years under the city's different assessment deferral programs. There's a 5-year one and a 7-year one. And there are also losses due to court appeal settlements, which tend to mitigate other growth that the city may see. Last year, the city's grand list was down 0.5%, which is not irregular when you're not in a revaluation year. So this year's 2.5% increase puts us in a much better situation. The city's last revaluation was in 2021, and the next revaluation is scheduled for October 1st, 2026. So it's going to be next grand this year. We've gone out to bid and signed a contract with Municipal Valuation Services, MUNIVAL, to conduct a statistical revaluation. And MUNIVAL last conducted a revaluation in New Haven back in 2016. So they didn't do our last reval, but they did the one before that. The last one was done by Using Government Solutions.
Thank you. I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment to recognize our colleague Brian Wingate, over the 29th Ward, who has joined us. Please continue.
Even with construction projects having their initial exemptions decrease or phase off each year, which is kind of what we wait for so that we can see that growth. It's important to note that because our grand list is so large at $9.25 billion, which is 52% higher than it was just 10 years ago, a new property would have to have a fair market value of around $132 million just to swing the list by 1%. So now I'm going to talk a bit about the drivers. So for the 2025 list, approximately 23 million was added as a result of building permits being closed out. That is what we would classify as new growth. So people are pulling building permits and they're either creating new structures or they're increasing the value of the structures that are already there. Another 90 million was added to the grand list from assessment deferral properties phasing in. This is what we would call deferred growth. The remainder is a combination of nonprofits that failed to reapply for their property tax exemption, which was due in 2025, and some previously exempt properties which were sold and now become taxable. In comparison to the 90 million that was added by the deferrals phasing off, 82 million was added last year. The city, however, didn't really see the effect of that growth because it was mitigated by Yale purchasing 300 George Street and making it 75% exempt for academic use. So the type of growth that we saw this year, the 2.5%, we didn't see it last year, partly because one of the biggest properties that would have been having its deferral go down, it was just mitigated by that large property at 300 George Street becoming 75% exempt. And that was first active for the 2024 grand list. This year, however, Yale has only removed about 2 properties valued at 2.6 million, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the 109 million that 300 and George Street was worth. And because we're still in the last year of Yale's voluntary agreement, the last one, not the new one that the mayor just entered into, that 2.6 million that comes off is still going to be paid by Yale. It's just paid in the form of a pilot and not in the grand list, so we're not really losing that money. As you know, or may not know, Yale is still the second highest taxpayer for the taxable property behind United Illuminating, and they have approximately 4.5 billion assessed dollars worth of exempt property, which represents 43% of the exempt real estate grand list. For comparison, the hospital has approximately 1.75 billion in assessed value of property, or 17% of the exempt real estate grand list. Citywide, if we're to talk about exempt properties in New Haven, about 56% of all property is exempt. If we were to look next year at deferrals, it really wouldn't make sense because next year we're going to have a revaluation. But just as an academic exercise, deferred growth would have been around $60 million for 2026. But that number doesn't mean anything because during a revaluation, all property values are reassessed. So if a property value goes up or down, we're going to have to recalculate the deferral. So there's no real way to tell you what those figures are going to be. That is the bulk of what we have to speak on the grand list. But before I open the floor to questions, I'm just going to talk about some of the things that we have upcoming in our office that we're doing now. The revaluation, as I stated, was for 2026. The revaluation company has just begun starting their work. They are beginning to send out data mailers this month, verifying property details and allowing homeowners to schedule an inspection if they wish. It's not a full reval, it's a statistical reval, so we're not required to go inside and list and measure every property. But as always, we allow those taxpayers who do want us to come in and list, measure, and check things out. The BAA, or the Board of Assessment Appeals, is currently underway with their sessions, which should be completed by the end of March, given they do not receive an extension, in which case they'd be done by the end of April. The Elderly Homeowners Program is also underway. It started on February 1st and goes all the way through May 15th, whereby homeowners over age 65 and making less than $56,500 if they're married, or $46,300 if they're single, are eligible for a state program benefit of between $150 and $1,250. It's a sliding scale. And where homeowners over age 70 and making under $80,380, and that's the same whether they're married or single, can qualify for our local option to have their taxes frozen. All must have met the age requirement by December 31st of 2025. So you would have had to be 65 by that date or 70 by that date in order to gain that benefit for this year. There is a veterans program, which is not new anymore, but it was new last year. Public Act 2446, which exempts the entire dwelling, minus the land, of any service member who is permanently and totally disabled based on a disability rating of 100. The language is very specific because there's a lot of different types of disabilities, and someone could be permanently and totally disabled without a rating of 100, in which case the state said they're not eligible for this program. So it takes a lot of time to institute this, but it makes sure that whoever is supposed to get it, gets it, and whoever is not supposed to does not. Last year, it resulted in 30 new applications, which reduced the grant list by about 3.6 million. And legislation has been added now to allow municipalities, if they wish, to adopt a local ordinance, which also could exempt the land. And this is just starting for 2025. The date, the city does not have this ordinance. Currently for 2025, we have 33 applications and it accounts for about $4.3 million. If we were to somehow enact a local ordinance where we add the land, that would add another 1.475, so almost $1.5 million that would come off the grant list. So now I'm done with my spiel, so if you guys have any questions, or if you ladies have any questions, I'm here to hopefully give you a great answer.
Thank you for your presentation. We are now going to have questions from committee members, and the queue is open. Queue is open. Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. And my apologies, I didn't catch the last part you said about the ordinance. Would you just give a high summary of?
They're starting in 2025, the state statute that allows us to enact this, or that tells us we have to enact this, is also allowing municipalities to adopt one of many local ordinances around the veterans program in this particular new law. And it's up to the cities to decide if they want to do that. I don't know if I have a sheet that details all of the different local options that there are. I do. So there's one where cities can choose to also exempt the land, which it almost seems like this was the intent when they first wrote the law, but they didn't write it in a way that said that. So now, as with a lot of things, they say, well, we'll put it on to the cities and let them make the decision. There is another that allows Gold Star veteran or Gold Star spouses to receive this even if their spouse is deceased and was deceased before this program existed. There is another that allows municipalities to exempt the property of people who are deemed unemployable but not 100% disabled. Like I said, there's a lot of nuances to how the VA determines disability rating and the permanently and totally disabled, because you can be 100% rating and not permanently and totally disabled. And I believe those are the options. The other option is just for surviving spouses who are not Gold Star spouses, but whose spouse died prior to this law existing.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, Mr. Chair. You mentioned the hospital, and I see it listed here on 2-16. But you gave a percentage, was it 1.6? What was that percentage?
The percentage that I gave, I believe it was 17%, and that is just the percentage of our exempt real estate that the hospital makes up,
Okay,
or the value of the hospital makes up, not the number of course.
So it's the 17% of the 60%.
17% of that, 56%, correct?
56%, yeah.
okay, there we go. Okay, so like those numbers don't add up. If I did Yale, 43, in the hospital.
Together, that's 60%
Right.
of the 56%.
Right,
Yes.
right, okay. Very good. Good catch, Mr. Chair, you knew where I was going. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. Next on the queue is Alder Festa, and after that, the queue is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report. Can you indicate are there any properties that were significant that came off of the grant list?
This year, no. Usually, like last year when we had that $175 million property, Yale sends us every year a letter letting us know what properties are coming off. And this year we didn't have a lot of big properties that came off. If we did, we probably would not have seen the 2.5% increase in a non-revalue.
And then same goes with, anything big that was added to the grant list. You mentioned a couple of the tax deferral buildings.
Well, most of the big buildings that are added are usually exempted for the first 2 years because of the assessment deferral programs. In terms of in the pipeline of big things that are coming, the only thing that I can really see is there's a property, it's on Winchester, is it Winchester Greens or Winchester Wells? So I can tell you in a second. Got the wrong papers here.
While you're looking at
Winchester
Green, I'm going to just briefly interrupt and recognize our colleague, Alder Carmen Rodriguez, who has joined us. Winchester Green, you said?
Winchester Green, it's on 315 Winchester. There's going to be 3 parts to it, a commercial, market rates, and then the low income portion, which will have its own tax abatement agreement.
Okay, but that's not for now, that's next year.
That is now and next year. So
Okay.
next year, it's really gonna be going up. Right now, it's, the agreements are signed off on, but the value hasn't been implemented.
Okay, thank you for that. And then there's also personal property taxes. And I ran into a restaurant owner who was saying, can you explain to me why I'm paying property taxes on some furniture in my restaurant that is pretty old? Can you explain how that works? Because their concern was, they're paying on material goods and then they're paying also property taxes.
Well, the answer to him, the short answer would be because it's a law, or her. It's because it's a law, and in the state of Connecticut, you pay personal property tax on anything that you have in your business. Now, for someone who's just taking over a business or just starting a business, they may not understand what that is. So personal property is basically anything that is movable. So you're not paying on intangibles. You're not paying based on how much money your business brings in. You're not paying on, architectural fee. You're paying on actually what is there and movable. So if you have chairs, if you have computer systems, if you have booths, if you have any type of computer, electronic data processing equipment, all of those things are taxed as personal property the same way that if you have a car, it's taxed as a motor vehicle.
So it's a state statute, is that what I understood?
Every one of the 169 towns in Connecticut pay personal property tax. It's not something we decided in New Haven because we want to squeeze people for money. Nope. It is the law statewide. And in terms of her contention that she's being taxed too much on things that are older, typically when that happens, it's because people are not filling out their personal property declarations. Connecticut is a self-report state, so we take the time to mail out declarations to everyone. We send them codes so they can do them online as well. All they have to do is provide us with the original cost or the estimated original cost for all of the inventory that they have. Well, not really the inventory, but all of taken inventory of all of the things that they have that are used for their business. They will then put the original cost of that. We depreciate it by a set amount. And then after it's depreciated, we then cut it to 70% of that amount, the same way that we do real estate. And that's how the taxes are generated.
So there is a depreciation to this real property?
Yes.
This personal property, but it's only 70%. Does it go lower through the year?
No, the 70% is after the depreciation. So that's just our assessment ratio. So if something was bought in 2025, we would depreciate it to 95%. If something was bought in 2024, we depreciate it to 90%.
What if it's like 10, 15 years old?
Then it would go into the residual bucket, which I believe is 30%. And then after that, we take that 30% and further reduce it to 70% of the 30%.
Okay, so that's actually helpful information even for us because this question has come up recently a few times, starting with the person, the female who's been in a business owner for a very long time. So I appreciate a better understanding of how this works. What else is included in this personal property?
Depends on what kind of business you have.
So it's basically a business and what they have inside.
It is a business and what they have inside, sometimes what they have outside, because sometimes signage, if it's not owned by the owner of the building, where people typically get tripped up, are on leasehold improvements. So you may have a blank space, a black or a white box when you move into it, but you may have put $100,000 into creating, say, the Apple Store or whatever it is that you are making of this. And you are reporting all of that on your federal income taxes and writing it off. Yet people don't like to report those leasehold improvements. They say, oh no, it's part of the building, but we don't tax it as part of the building. So it's going untaxed unless we get it as personal property.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa. Further questions from colleagues on this update on the grand list for the next tax year? Seeing none, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. That made me all easy for that. Thank you. It's all right, revals next year, I know.
Yes, we'll have more to say. That's right. Rest up.
Have a good night.
Because the hard part is coming. We'll move to the next item, which is the budget overview. And I see our director and deputy director of the Office of Management, OP, Office of Policy, Budget, Management, and Grants, OPBMG. I think I got that. Good evening. Names and addresses for the record, please.
Shannon McHugh, 925 Roanoke Road, Waterbury, Connecticut.
Ron Gizzi, 219 Rainbow Terrace.
And you have a presentation for
Yes,
us?
I do.
Let's get that passed out and then you can begin. Thank you. And your slides are numbered. Good job.
They are numbered,
Good job.
yes.
We love numbered slides.
They work. All right, well, I'm happy to present the FY 2027 Mayor's proposed budget. It's a lot of work and it's nice to see that it's done and to share it with you. So the first page, or actually the second page, is the budget overview, just really high level. The total proposed budget was $733 million. That's for the general fund, which reflects an increase of about 4.4% over FY 2026. The budget is balanced. It maintains all essential services. And we call it a modest tax levy increase to sustain operations. So, we can talk about that now that there's some other items on the table. But the tax increase was 4%. So it covered most of that 4.4% increase in spending. And just the next slide is just to show you where the money comes from. Almost half of our budget comes from property taxes. It's the largest percentage and really funds most of what we do. We do get 39% in state aid, so half of that is for education. A little bit less than half and a little bit more is for the city side with the tiered pilot agreement. It went up this year from about 101 million to about 105. And then we get some from license permits, fees, and other revenue. And again, we just talked about the grand list, but the grand list grew by 2.48%. We have more detail on the next slide. That was an overview, but you can see the detail there as to how much comes in via which source. So it's just, you can see the state aid for education, actually, and the state aid for other. I think I might have said that backwards. The state aid for education is a little bit bigger. But it's both right around 20% there. So it's a really important source of income. So that's just a little bit more detail there. And then we just talked about the grand list on slide 5, so I don't really need to go into too much detail, but personal property was up 5.9%, real property up 2.32. All in all, it was up almost 4.5%, 2.5%, excuse me. The next slide 6 and 7, just really is a summary of the millage rate. Our millage rate for real estate personal property is at 40.98 mils. Motor vehicles mill rate is capped at 32.46. So you do see, there was an increase of 1.58 mils, which drives about $23.15 million of additional revenue. And then on page 7, I wanted to show a trend because, as you can see, the millage rate has always sort of hovered around 40. At some points, it was higher in 21 and 22, it was 43.88. Then it came down to in the 30s, and now it's back up to the 40s. But we do know we have a rebound next year, and we also know there's some budget levers perhaps that could lower that amount. I know those decisions are not mine to be made, but we did learn of a new revenue agreement with Yale, so those discussions will be had, I'm sure. And then the next one is the net taxable grand list summary, and it just shows the trend over time, and it's definitely heading in the right direction. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of the revaluation. I mean, clearly there's been a lot of construction. There's been appreciation in the housing market, so we'll have to see how we do and what that's going to do to the millage rate. But this is where it stands as of now in the history that we were looking at. The next slide is tax levy details. And you can see the percent increase for each, the difference in how much we're capturing. So, the property taxes at this new millage rate will bring in $364 million, actually $365 million versus the $345 in 2026. State aid went up a little bit, mostly in that pilot that I discussed already. License permits and fees dipped a little bit, and the reason for that mainly is because of building permits, because the Yale capital plan drove the increase in building permits in this current year, and the department's doing really well, and we expect them to hit that higher budget number. But we had to bring that number down because it's based on the actual projects that are happening, so we can get a really good assessment of where we think those revenues will be, because it won't be as much as it was this year, so we brought that number down a little bit. Rents, fees, and fines are pretty stable. There was a little bit of movement there, just small bumps in certain line items. And then pilots and assessed revenue went up 21%, and we will get to some of that in a moment. I did include the net taxable grand list there for your view as well. Just shows the trend over the years, just to show you the health of the local tax base and what that means in terms of revenue to the city. And then I mentioned, I alluded to a moment ago about Yale annual payment. For the mayor's budget, we included this was $22.6 million. That number moved quite a bit. There's a lot going on during the budgeting process. So we did include that. It was essentially flat from the prior year. And then after the fact, there was the press conference on Friday in which we learned there's a new Yale agreement. That will be presented to the Board of Alders for discussion and acceptance or deliberations. I don't want to be presumptuous. That will go in front of the Board of Alders, and you will get all the details later. But based on that new agreement, the agreement reflects a $233 million dollars over the life of the deal. The agreement stipulates that Yale will provide an $8 million one-time infusion to get the payments back on track. And then a lump sum increase to 25.5 in the FY 2027 budget. So that is different from what was proposed, and I'd just like to point that out. But obviously that will go for further discussion, and we will get to that at a future date. The fire service payment maintains its 5.68% of the city fire department's operating budget. So that's included there. And then I just included, I think I said $22.6 million in 27. It's 20.6. But in my mind, I added a tax payment because when 300 George Street went tax-free, or went tax exempt, that's the word. There still is. Yeah, tax exempt. Yeah, there was a $2.2 million payment there. So that carries on to 2027. So all in all, for 2027, the budgeted payment was $30.2 million. If we move to slide 10, there was an increase, a budgeted increase in the Neighborhood Parking Authority's general fund contribution. And the reason for that is that we will raise their pilot from $1.5 million to $3 million for the next year. And this enhanced pilot payment directly supports the city's operating needs and offsets municipal costs. It's tied to capital agreements enabling the long-term investment on Temple, for example, on Temple Street Garage for repairs and other capital projects. The city will provide the parking authority $3 million in capital support. And the funding aligns with various statutes authorizing municipal aid for traffic, parking, and related facilities. And that capital investment will extend the useful life of core transportation assets and reduce future liabilities. And so the parking authority will pay a larger pilot in 2027. So I wanted to reflect that there. And that's a summary of the revenue. I'm going to move on to the expenditures.
And before you do that,
Yes.
I will recognize our colleague, Alder Yvette Hamilton, who has joined us.
So then now I'm going to focus on the expenditures level, where the money goes. About 30% of the spending goes for education. Another 30% goes to employee benefits and pensions, which is about another 30% combined. Public safety is about 14.5%, and debt service is 9.5%. So when you look at those numbers combined, there's not a lot of, wiggle room, right? Because all these things are, we consider the employee benefits and debt service fixed costs, that we know what those costs will be. We get actuarially determined 8X every year, annual contributions. So we typically know ahead of time what those are gonna be. They're pretty, we've been paying 100% of that. It's pretty non-negotiable. I mean, the city has made a commitment to pay 100% of those 8X in order to bring our funded ratio of the pension up. And as we better fund our pension, the idea is that over time, those pension costs will go down. But we're in that period where we're really kind of trying to improve that funded ratio for time, so we are seeing increases in the pension contributions. But we do believe we're doing the right thing for the long term, and we shall see those numbers come down in the future. So the point I'm making here is there's a lot of things, education funding is something that the city, we have to maintain education. So it's a tight budget. There's not a lot of wiggle room. So that's why I'm bringing that up there. But if you turn to slide 12 and you look at where the money goes, you get more detail as to what I'm talking about. Education, we increased that spending by $5 million. So that allocation now is $218 million, up from 213. Employee benefits, it went up quite a bit. I mean, just our Anthem healthcare costs went up. We bumped that up about 10%. It could go up higher than that, but we thought that was conservative enough number to increase, to include in the budget. So you do see those costs went up quite a bit. Pension costs went up a bit, like I just said. Debt service, public safety, that's mostly because of the labor contract. Most of that increase in public safety was to absorb the labor contract. Debt service is up a bit, but that will come down. That's based on an amortization schedule, so it's set, and we know how much we have to pay. And we will see a debt cliff coming up, and it's 2034, we'll see a major debt cliff. But you're gonna see like kind of level off and then drop. So future years will definitely look better in terms of what debt service is going to look like. General government went up 3.7, that's mostly some inflationary increases, salary increases, and a lot of the contracts are being negotiated. And there's a lot of contracts that are open, and we did not include the increase here. We did put in a proposed 3% for executive management, but we also did bump up how much we set aside for labor, and it's about $6 million. $4 million of that is for, and I just realized I didn't put it on this page, which I probably should have, but I'd just like to point out that we did bump it up to $6 million. $4 million of that is the second installment of the police contract for the retro payments. We made the first payment in 2025, and then the next payment was due in 18 months. So that goes into FY 2027. So we bumped that up to cover that, and then we also included reserve for other contracts that are currently being negotiated. So that is included there as well. We still believe we'll have some salary savings. We've done an analysis, and we believe that we won't be in full employment for 2027. One good thing is the police department's vacancy rates look a little bit better, so we took any salary savings out of the police. If you look at the 102 form, you'll see that that's gone from, last year we had a negative number there, and this year we do not. And that's because they worked really hard to increase the hiring, and hopefully in planning and talking about how to reduce the overtime, which was part of what we negotiated with that labor contract. So that's a little overview on where the spending increased. Most of it is unfortunately fixed costs. The general fund trends on page 13 shows you the trend over time. And it shows you the growth year over year. So you see 4.4 for 2027, and you can just see the trend across the time period. The next slide slide 14 are key changes. Total expenditures went up about $31 million. Salary expenditures went up 7%. We'll get into, there are a few new positions that we included in the budget, and I'll go through that when we get to that slide. Employee benefits were up 9.2% all in, when you look at all of them. And debt service was up, 6% or so. So other major budget highlights, the budget does maintain stable services. Finance saw a $1.2 million increase, and this is mainly for IT. And we've talked about it when we talk about the monthly report that IT is trending upward. And there's a number of new software. There's lots of solutions out there. The departments are trying to gain access to better software so they can do their jobs, so we can collect revenues more efficiently, so we can track things more efficiently. So that's where we're seeing the uptick there in finance. Ultimately, we think that these investments in these software and IT solutions could make the city more efficient over time, give us better transparency. There's lots of exciting things that are being rolled out. We have a grant management tool that we're rolling out soon, which will give much greater transparency to what's going on with the special funds and the grants. There's payment solutions that we're taking advantage of to collect payments better, more efficiently, timely, better reporting. So we think that these things will help the city, improve over time in terms of its operational efficiencies. The police went up 4.1, again, mainly from that labor contract. Fire went down, so they are implementing some efficiencies. There is a little bit of ARPA support that we were able to deploy so that we can make sure, the goal is that we spend every dime of ARPA. And so we did make a few moves to make sure that that money gets spent and we can still do all the work that we intended to do, and I'll get into that in another slide. Education went up $5 million. Community resilience went up 1.6, and this is for one for Compass. It funds Compass and it funds the mayor's tutoring initiative. So those are services that are greatly valued by the community. So we were able to make sure that those were funded for 2027. And then the salary reserve for contracts, it was $6.14 million, including the second payment of the police retro. Next, continued budget highlights. The city's pension ADEC went up $1.6 million and fully funds it for the ADEC for 2027. The employee benefits, as I said already, have gone up $9.9 million. Liability insurance, we increased that by $1.3 million due to rising insurance premiums. We are working really hard in our procurement of liability insurance to try to get the best prices possible, but we are seeing those increases. And then debt service, it's up $4.5 million based on the city's amortization table. The next slide is about education funding. You can see that the state funding is the blue line, the blue bars. And as you can see, those have not moved. Those have not moved at all. The gold line is the city's contribution, which has moved. So we're continuing to fund education, to ensure that, we give our children as much of our resources as we can so that we can, help improve education across the city, provide services. They are seeing the new teacher's contract. They're seeing cost increases in transportation and some tuition. And so we have increased that budget by $5 million. I'm not in a position to really go into the pressure of the Board of Education, and I'm sure they'll be here for their own
They have a night all to themselves. And that's on purpose. Please continue.
Yes, okay. Slide 18 is the new positions. So I just put just to highlight what the new positions are. Like to highlight some of the, we've added to elderly services, and there's a couple part-time positions there because we will have a new center opening up with am I saying it right? Trowbridge?
Trowbridge.
Thank you. Yes. And so that will need to be staffed. Excuse me. I'm going to look at the chart down below where it says new positions. I'm sorry, I might have to sneeze. My allergies. I don't want to sneeze mid-sentence. But under new positions, I've made a few highlights. So the highlights in gray.
If you need to pause to get a glass of water, like I think we'll get you a cup of water, so just take a second. While you're pausing for a moment, I'll just let colleagues know, just remind colleagues that, of course, over the course of the several weeks, we'll hear from individual coordinators and department heads. And so questions that are intended to dig deep into a particular operation should be saved for the evening when the department head is here, and should not be asked tonight, because we won't get the same answer or the best answer as we will when the actual operational leadership is here. So tonight, after city staff have concluded their presentation, colleagues, of course, will be invited to ask questions, but they should be at a certain level of generality, or maybe some of the broader questions, because the nitty-gritty questions we should save for the department heads and the coordinators when they're here. And thank you, Alder, for your assistance. Please continue.
The positions highlighted in green, we'll see Deputy Director of Climate Change, Executive Director of Climate Change, and 3 project managers for housing, which would go into economic development. Those 5 were previously, well, they still are ARPA funded. And these are positions that are very important to the mayor's strategy, the mayor's priorities. And so we have brought them into the general fund. The other positions in blue, the personal computer technician, that's for the library. It's actually cost neutral because they eliminated 2 positions as well. But technically they're new positions. They're not completely cost neutral, but just about. It's like $3,000 difference or something close to that. And then the rest are proposed positions, including a deputy controller, internal auditor, program and finance, under the position would be finance and program analyst. And that is, really to strengthen our internal controls. This will help us for our annual audits. This will help us, in complying with all the rules we need to comply with. So that'll strengthen our internal controls. We also have some positions for parks, a field technician, a caretaker 3, a caretaker 2, the elderly program manager that I mentioned earlier. And then there's a couple part-time positions to offer classes and things for seniors. And then under economic development, again, there's a manager for process control. So those are what we have included. The total cost is about $1.2 million overall, although it's a little bit overstated because of those library positions, but I did want to put it in there because they are technically new positions. So it's about $1 million. That's that for the new positions. And then on page 20, there are some reallocations of ARPA, and the main purpose of doing this is that all those dollars have to be spent by December 31st, 2026. And we have been tracking it very closely, and I may have to let Ron speak. Ron has been living ARPA for many years now. And knows it like the back of his hand. Did you want to take this?
Sure. So we have consultants we have been working with since we received the ARPA funding. And right now, the Treasury regulations state that December 31st, the funding actually there has to be a check cut by December 31st. So we put an internal deadline of September 30th for everyone to get the work done. We're giving everyone 3 months to get all their invoices in, close out all their programs, so we can actually cut checks on December 31st. So the Board of Education and the Career Pathways, those 2 programs, great programs, but it's all timing. We don't think they're going to make that September 30th deadline. So that's why we're reallocating those 2 programs both to 1.5 for police overtime, 1.4 for fire overtime. So those two projects, we cannot add any new projects. I think we've gone through this a couple times, but we can't add any new projects after that December 2024 deadline. So these two are existing projects, and they will have a direct impact on reducing the general fund.
And I will say, speaking with the CEO and deputy CEO, they really are working on making sure that we can bring the overtime in line so that it's sustainable over time. So like the budget that was proposed from fire had already lowered some of the costs to make sure that they can absorb this. So they really are working on trying to make sure to stabilize over time, because this subsidy will not be there in the future. So I just want to let you know, it's not that we're like, oh, great, we'll just keep, there's a lot of work being done to minimize the overtime in those departments. So, and on page 21, the overall assessment is that this is a responsible, balanced budget. It supports essential services and long-term obligations. It's a modest mill rate increase to ensure stability, one could argue, but modest, the definition of modest, but we did our best to keep it as low as possible and balance the budget. And I'm sure we'll have more discussion as we talk about other levers as we get to the final budget. And then there is a need for continued structural revenue strategy. Like the point of the matter is that we've had ARPA for quite some time that's offset the overtime. We do know we're gonna have a reval, so we'll get to see how much growth we actually saw in the local economy. Obviously, as you see that growth, the millage rate has to be adjusted because you can't have a windfall. But it does relieve pressure as we have new buildings and new property coming online. So we do think that, a lot of the economic development activities going on is going to really help in the future. We also think that the long-term liabilities and funding those, we believe that we're on the right path to bring those down. There's a need, and that's part of the IT spending, to be more efficient in what we do, to do things well, to do them, for less cost, be more timely, be more transparent. We think the IT budget will help us get there. So we're thinking about structural balance over time. There's other things we can do. We have some ideas about where we could lower some of the costs. For instance, on energy for the city, we actually did a really successful hedge this year to bring electricity costs down. Like, we really are looking across the board for ways that we can do things better, more efficiently, and really help. So we are thinking long-term. We are thinking about structural balance and how to make sure we achieve it and maintain it for the long haul. So that's, the next slide is about this as well. We have some challenges. Our reliance on state aid and tax exempt properties are always a concern and something we have to work around. There's some exposure to fluctuations in permits and fines. We're stepping up our efforts though, particularly in traffic and parking. There's a lot of initiatives going on across the city to improve our revenue collection. So I do want to highlight that, and we'll get to that when we get to the departments coming in and talking about all the things that we're working on. And then long-term sustainability. Like, those are things we think about all the time, and we will continue to. So that is my overall presentation, and the final slide is questions and answers.
Thank you very much for your presentation. In a moment, we'll take questions from committee members. Just a reminder again for colleagues that any question that's intended to get into the nitty-gritty of a department really ought to be saved for when that department head or coordinator is here. I also just want to remind colleagues, although there was much fanfare with the announcement last Friday of this potential, this tentative new deal between the university, Yale University and the city, it hasn't been submitted to us yet. So it's technically not before us. And so the budget that's proposed assumes that the voluntary payment will continue on a trajectory that was established through much of the years of the current agreement, which is the baseline plus 10 million, which produces about 23 million. So that's what this budget assumes. We don't yet have that additional 5 million that you might have heard about in the press release Friday, and technically it's not before us because the mayor hasn't communicated to us before. So we will not be taking questions tonight about that new agreement because it's actually not before us. So let's stick with the item before us, which is the $733 million general fund budget that the mayor has proposed. And the queue is now open for questions. Colleagues who have questions on this item. Alder Furlow. Alder Furlow.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, as always, very thorough. So I hope I did some calculations, tried to do it right. I think I have the wrong pair of glasses on, Mr. Chair, so I'm trying to see things. But except for, so I'm looking at page 13, general fund trends.
Yes.
So this budget represents 4.4% over 2026.
Yes.
It looks like we average about 4.3% yearly, going up except for that year 22 where we had high inflation. This looks like we're doing about, from this graph from 2021 to 2027, we have an increase of about 29%. Is that normal for a city of this size?
Normal? It's hard to say, but when you look at it, you think, I'm thinking about it in terms of the services provided. And there's certain things, there's certain costs that are legacy costs, right, that drive up the budget. The pension, our
Education, Department of Education,
like our other,
our debt services, the health insurance. Yeah, so all those are, so maybe what I should ask instead, because this trend going up and up and up every year is extremely concerning to a city of majority blue-collar workers who are struggling to pay and to manage. The majority of us are one paycheck away from being booted if things get out of control. So I guess I'm wondering how much of what we're looking at in this budget is new spending versus cost growth?
Yeah, that's, what I probably would be really useful for us to do, and I haven't done it to bring here tonight, is to separate out the fixed costs from all the operating costs. Because here's a couple of things, like, the mayor did negotiate higher yield payments several years ago, right? So there was more money to spend. That number really bumped up in 2022, right? So there's a little bit more to spend on some services that were needed by the city. So some of that was covered. The net growth was covered by the Yale payment. Some of the costs that are increasing, like the debt service, you can see so clearly what's going on with the debt service. You can see when it's going to drop. We are doing all those refundings to try to bring that down as much as possible. We have a refunding opportunity this year for $3.5 million, which will be taken evenly across the board on our debt service payments. So there's things like that. The pension, it's going to go up before it goes down. Our pension funded ratio went up a little bit this year. You'll see when the audit comes out. The police and fire went up a couple points, which is heading in the right direction. We had lowered the discount rate because the discount rate is how much return we will get on the pension assets sitting in funds, because we thought that old number was realistic and added, too much volatility in the annual costs over time. So by doing that, you did increase the liability, but what you did is you increased the predictability as well, right? So we saw that bump up during that period as well. Stay the course, it will go down. It will be fully funded at some point, based on the amortization schedule. Healthcare is another thing that keeps going up. It just keeps going up. The insurance is another one of those things that continues to go up. And so it's always that balancing act, right? Like, how do you pay for one of the legacy costs from the debt and the pension? And how do you provide the services that the city so needs? And it is that balancing act. So I would say when you look at this trend, some of it is out of our control to some extent. And we definitely are looking at the things within our control. I will say that the budget.
But what's in our control is new spending.
Yes, yes.
So that's definitely in our control. And
Yeah.
do we still have the freezing,
We do have
spending
the
freeze
freeze,
still? I think through you, Mr. Chair, and maybe it won't be during this budget process because I don't know how swamped the office is, but it might be good to see what was mentioned, the fixed cost versus operational cost. But I think what I'm wondering, this last thing that I'll just say in this round.
So noted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should have waited for your response. My apologies. I'm wondering if in this budget, because we heard this last budget, is the inflation and operation cost included in these numbers?
Yes, the inflation, there were a lot of contractual service lines, not a lot, but some of the contractual service lines that went up. Most of that was driven by inflation. And they were within inflation. The only contractual service line that really went up a lot, one was community service for the tutoring program and Compass, and then IT. But IT is sort of that investment you do now for better, to have better processes later. Other than that, it was inflationary. We increased the electricity by inflation, some of the contractual service lines by inflation. There's not a lot of, there's so many labor negotiations going on. The only increase we added was a 3% executive management. It was a proposed, we put it in. That is certainly for your deliberation.
Is there a overall percentage? So you add up all these numbers together. Is there a percentage on this? The inflation number, is there a percentage that you can put on there?
Well, the number I had put in early on the budget, and I haven't checked recently. The number we were using, because it changes all the time, was 2.8% for inflationary growth. I could get you a more updated one. But as the budget was progressing, that was the assumption we were working with at the beginning. It does change all the time.
So one important thing here, if you look at page 2-60 and 2-61, just those last four items, we have pension went up by 1.6. We have medical self 1.2. Then we have employee benefits, almost 10 million, Board of Ed, 5 million. That's $18 million right there.
Yeah.
Just those last four items. The other one that went up is the
Debt service.
debt service also increased, and we increased the contract reserve. So right there, that's
Most of it.
over $20 million right there of the 30 million increase there.
And then the police retro.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're as conservative as we could be.
I think that.
I appreciate that. And these numbers are helpful. I understand things better in percentages than the raw numbers. But I appreciate that.
Yep.
And I think that's all I have for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Fred. Next on the queue is Alder Wingate, followed by Alder Walker-Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, you say you have some contracts that's open?
Oh, labor contracts, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
How does that How many do you have open, and how did that affect your bottom line?
Well, that's why we increased the salary reserve line, because it didn't make sense to build it into the budget, because we don't know what the salaries are gonna be negotiated, but it's currently the fire contract, which could be quite large. Union 884, 3144, and some of the blue collar contracts.
Okay. I have one more question.
Please.
With the new positions, right?
Mhm.
The salaries that's attached to these new
Yep.
positions. Is just the history of these positions that y'all came up with the numbers, or did y'all come up with new numbers for these positions?
Well, most of it is contractual, like for certain positions that do certain functions. There are, if you look in the back of the labor contracts, you can like kind of line it up with the step and the range. And this, it has the labor contract on I didn't label the columns, 1, 2, 3. Well, right after the title of the position, you see the labor contracts, or the labor unions.
844.
Yep. And then you see the range. So for executive management, you only include a range. And that's the rate that was set for a position of this kind, with that kind of skill level. And so we really based it on that. Like, we didn't just arbitrarily make numbers. We were lining it up with the contract.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, no.
These are the current salaries that everyone's making.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alder Wingate, Alder Walker Myers, and then Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm following up on Alder Wingate's question a little bit. So you put more money into contract reserves. How did you base that number? I know you said that some of it is the retro payment for the police contract. So I'm just trying to figure out how we figured out how much to actually put there.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because there's a variety of reasons why you wouldn't want to put exactly what you think, because you give away your negotiation hand. But we did do some analysis, and we came up with a number that we thought, based on likelihood of a contract being settled this year, and what we thought might be a salary increase that the city would be comfortable with. But, it's all negotiation, those things change. I'm not privy to the negotiations, but we did, we did work with labor relations a little bit. But it's an estimate. And it's also based on how much resource we have available. Like, we knew for sure that police retro payments due. That was set. And then normally we set aside 1.7 million, so we bumped it up knowing that there was a lot in play here.
Yeah, I understand all that. I only asked the question specifically because, let me go back to a different question and then I'll say what I was going to say. So I heard you name a couple of contracts that's open and ready to be negotiated. Fire was one,
Yeah.
884. Is that the total number that's open and ready right now, or do we have an estimate?
Yeah, there's a variety of estimates, like we run numbers in various ways, but it's not the total, like it could have been higher. But then you start thinking, another thing we were considering, like what's the likelihood of that settling during the year? And, we took that into consideration also. And then also it's, would we like to put more? Yes. One of the reasons, one, it's resource allocation, like where are you gonna put the money? And since there's some, it's not set yet, we thought, adding another 2 million or so was fair. I mean, it's more than the prior year. We covered the police. The fire department is working on efficiencies where they actually brought their budget down. So we thought it was a fair number.
And I wasn't talking about the number. I was saying how many labor contracts are actually open that you think you could negotiate. Now, I understand that, you don't know it's going to be negotiated by somebody else. I wasn't talking about that. I'm just talking about like this year.
Yep.
How many labor contracts do you think you will settle?
At least 4. Oh, yeah.
At least 4.
Right here.
Okay.
I was trying to remember.
That was my question, because you have a number.
1-6.
Yeah, it was a memory thing. I was like,
So, let's see, 1, 2.
You don't even have to go that deep. I don't even have the book in front of me. I have my glasses today.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
For a reason.
10 are out right now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sounds like 4.
There we go.
Some are ending at the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
but I'm not, those negotiations are not just for a while.
Yep, nope, that's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam President. Next is Alder Rodriguez, and then the queue is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I reflect and I look at our budget, proposed budget, we're looking at $733,300,000 approximately.
Mhm.
We have a population in New Haven growing.
Mhm.
We now have about 139,000. And we have 20,000 children just in our public school system that are coming from the neighboring, many of them from our neighboring cities. We know that. My concern is, and we talk about new spending, we're looking at a 4.4%.
Mhm.
Many of our taxpayers, as my colleague here had indicated, we're on a check by check.
Mhm.
We have a finance department, we have economic development, and we have a commission that has to deal with finance.
Mhm.
My question, and you mentioned you have a nice report, and I thank you for that report, but I think there's a piece here that's important. What efforts are being done to identify new sources? Because we have Yale New Haven Hospital, we have all these different that you look every year at. And we know they're significant to the pocket of the city to protect the interests of everyone, even the most vulnerable. We know that they are. But what other sources or what other funding can we use to increase revenue, considering where our city is? I mean, we can't continue on the pocket of the taxpayers. So we need to look at, and we depend on the wisdom and the prudence of those who are in finance. Because I don't know the finance the way those experts, the people and experts know it. But there has to be a way that New Haven can meet the demands of our departments and what we need. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I believe your question was
So I believe
additional sources of revenue.
and what
What
are
efforts are
the
being made?
efforts? Where are the efforts that our departments are doing to identify and all those that are supposed to be a part of it? Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Please.
Well, the one thing I can say is that, one, economic development is very active in bringing industry, bringing new housing, bringing new opportunities into the city, and I think we can all see that. I had lived in New Haven about 20 years ago, maybe longer, and I came back, and there's been a lot of development since I left. And you can see it's obvious over time. And that continues, that work is continuing, and it's constant effort to improve that. So that is one way that the city is gonna continue to grow, and you know, it's slow because it has to show up on the tax base, and the tax base gets reassessed every 5 years, but that is moving in the right direction. Right. The state does limit, you know, there's a limit on how much we can charge for the motor vehicles taxes. We do have unlimited tax levy capacity. We want to keep that at the minimum because, as you said, there's a lot of need and pressure on people. I can fully understand that. There's not a lot of leverage you can pull in the state of Connecticut because of state statutes. So I think, one, we can grow our way out of, some of this pressure with a lot of that development. And also, I think that's why it was so critical for the mayor to work with Yale to try to increase that revenue. I'll also say there's a lot of activity going on at the state level to advocate for more revenue there. There's definitely a push on the educational side because that number's been flat for years. So there's pushes there. There's legislative work being done to try to get more money out of the state. The state is, they did step up in some ways. They gave us more grant municipal aid. They stepped up in the pilot. The pilot, though, if you were to calculate it based completely on the formula, it would be more than we're getting. That's another legislative push that they, the mayor and his team are working on. So, it's something you have to keep at day in and day out to try to grow the city, work with the state to get more resources for the city, work with Yale to get money that helps the city. You know, there's a lot of things that are going on. And then on the internal side is like, how can we do things more efficiently? That's like, I keep bringing up like the IT budget bumping up, but you know, technology has changed significantly. And there's ways that we can do things smarter and capture more revenue. We're also doing some work on, you know, how to capture revenue more, you know, if there's delinquencies, how do we capture that? There was a meeting today about how to collect ticketing revenue, how to notify, how to make sure we get that money, and how to be consistent, fair about that. So I do think the city's working on many levels to do what you're talking about, but it is a challenging environment, no doubt about it. It's not easy to do this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Rodriguez. Further questions from colleagues on this overview of the mayor's proposed budget for next fiscal year? Any further questions from colleagues on this item? I have one. We don't yet have an ARPA order. There's reallocations that are part of your presentation, but when we looked at the items that were communicated to the board in its most recent meeting, there was no ARPA order. I assume that there's going to be an ARPA order doing
Yes.
reallocations?
Yes, I will, it's in here. I'm
That it
surprised.
needs to be
We will get
communicated to us,
Yes.
That's
Well,
just
it was submitted, but we will.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I was looking for it in our agenda last meeting and it wasn't there, so.
All right, it is ready and prepared, we'll make sure this.
Look forward to receiving it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions from colleagues? Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to take a 5-minute comfort break. We are in recess for 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's all right. You can move stuff around, man. It's only furniture. It's only furniture.
We're gonna have a
man.
good time this year, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
We're gonna have a good time. All right.
Yeah, no, I know that. I negotiated, I didn't know that. I thought, I wanted to make sure I was thinking about the right. Okay, you let me know that actually.
And I did not see.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Oh, okay, okay, that's what
I heard somebody. But no, give me, whenever you give me the dates and then I'll let him know and we'll come out. Okay, yeah. That way I'll be patient.
we have to have everything, they change ballots, so it goes on that revision, those that the memories are. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Always well put together.
So, yeah.
No, you're good. I love this.
So she does a good job. She really.
Mr. Chair, I moved it. I don't even want to hear it.
Allison too, she's as my position.
Will you, like I said, let me.
Yeah, I'll be there, yeah.
You let me know when you want me.
Guys, then
And me. No, I appreciate it.
Give me the date.
Yes.
Date.
Oh, yeah, as soon as we have it, then we're going. Yeah. Soon.
Oh, no.
Hello, how are you doing? You okay?
I have a really.
Yes.
So.
Just email it.
You gotta have a.
I thank you.
Really like the stuff.
All right.
Maybe council speaks something. Oh, now they just all come making reads. We can't have it in the council.
Well,
we might be.
good luck. Joe.
Yeah, the kids, so the kids are always going to books in the meeting with that. And so they all constructed stuff on the way to the park.
Don Hayden. We'll be ready when you're ready.
So our kids said, we should have a
Good evening, everybody. I'm calling the meeting back to order. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. We have 3 items on our agenda. These are monthly meeting type items. Multi-year contract for golf cart lease, 2 positions to be reclassified in labor relations, and our monthly financial report for January 2026. So we've concluded the workshop portion of the meeting, and now we'll move to those items. Starting with item number 3. This is the lease of golf carts. Hello. When you are settled, we'll take your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Layton. My address is 18 Villa Rosa Terrace in Milford, Connecticut, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Parks Department. So today's, appreciate being brought before the Finance Committee to discuss the golf course lease agreement. This is, warmer weather today, and wonderful to think about the upcoming season. So to continue on all the improvements to make the golf course a premier destination, this past year, as everyone knows, the City of New Haven reopened the golf course facilities, including a new pro shop, events and community room, and a restaurant and patio area. The tremendous response that we've had from the golfers has been extremely positive. And so this golf cart lease is picking up where the current lease is coming to an end, which ends in July 2026. Those current carts that are there are all used golf carts. There's 75 of those right now, and those are not the best carts for as many features as new carts would provide. The new and updated golf carts will improve pace of play and course conditions and safety, while also providing these features that will ultimately increase the revenue for the City of New Haven Golf Course Special Enterprise Fund. They feature GPS locating and also will improve the course playability, therefore increasing rounds and revenue. Overall, in 2025, in cart rental numbers, over 26,000 rentals were sold for both combined 18-hole and 9 holes. Of these, about 56% were 18 holes and 44% were 9 holes. The fees for the 18-hole golf cart rentals are right now $23, and for the 9 holes, $15. The new golf cart lease would have the first payment go into effect starting in July 2026. The carts would be delivered in advance of that date in order to transition into use for the upcoming peak summer season. This lease agreement references a sourceful cooperative discount available to municipalities. In regards to the maintenance of the golf carts, with the new carts and this new lease, it does have inherent maintenance that will come on a weekly basis. The manufacturer, Club Car, has a facility here in Connecticut that they'll be able to service and maintain those carts throughout the term of the lease, which is a 4-year lease. This is a big improvement to the current provider because the current provider is not based locally and does not have that frequency of visits and maintenance services provided, as well as there are additional costs for those routine maintenances for the existing carts that we have for the past 3-year lease that we are coming to the end on. The new carts are more fuel efficient, and we've also been very excited about. There's some new features at the golf course that allows for golfers to estimate the yardage, project out the number of par holes or par per hole, and also have the ability for staff to monitor the pace of play throughout the day so that they can locate the carts along the golf course. And if there are environmental conditions, I know with the warmer weather and this melt, we're looking forward to hopefully getting the course open in the coming days. Hopefully if it dries out a good amount, but having these carts will allow for them to stay on cart paths, not go off, maybe get stuck in certain environmentally sensitive areas. And so in that way, it also improves the safety of the golf course user experience. In summary, we appreciate you hearing this lease agreement request for approval. We have on an annual basis for each of the 4 years, it's $145,000 approximately to lease the carts annually. And like I said before, that would be starting in July of the new fiscal year, if it was approved. I'd like to see if anyone has any questions about the new golf course cart lease.
Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate your hanging out with us and waiting for this moment in the agenda. We'll take questions now from members of the committee, starting with Alder Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for presenting, Deputy Director. Are the golf carts electric or gas?
They are gas powered.
Are there any efforts to switch, or any reason why you didn't pursue electric golf carts given the mayor's initiatives on climate change?
I think we do and are definitely interested in pursuing those coming up. Right now, the current carts are gas powered, and there would need to be a consideration of the infrastructure that would support the new electric carts, which would be like in the form of like an electric cart barn. I think we are looking towards that, definitely. Right now, there's a few other infrastructure improvements involving, there's like a pump station that also is having, needing some infrastructure upgrades or improvements, as well as some of the immediate golfer experience. We're looking at, we started doing some bunker renovations, as well as looking to do another wave of putting green and the first phase of master plan of bunker renovations. So as far as like the future for electric carts, I think that's where we definitely want to go. Club Car is actually going to provide an electric cart as part of this so that folks can get used to and familiarized. And then for the future, as we kind of continue to work with the Golf Course Advisory Board, we'll be looking for that next infrastructure and building improvement to support the electric carts.
Thank you. I have one other question. Maybe this is just a point of clarification. Did you say that the lease includes maintenance, or would maintenance be provided by the Parks Department?
The maintenance would be provided by the manufacturer of the carts, so that would be all on the club car manufacturer.
And that's included in the cost?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Director, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Moore. After Alder Moore, we have Alder Punzo, and then the queue is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Deputy Director, thank you for that presentation. Before I ask my question, I just want to say that I am a frequent user of the golf course, and the golf course manager has done a really amazing job with the look of the golf course and the ideas and the future things that he wants to do there. So it is an asset to the city. My question is the maintenance and service. Would there be some responsibility of the golf course to manage the carts too, or protect them in any way other than over and above the maintenance service agreement?
Definitely. I think, there is certain things that the golf course operator does to ensure that any users of the golf carts use them safely. There aren't any damage that is, caused to the golf carts due to driving in certain areas or driving them, erratically. So there is a required level of oversight of those carts, having them properly stored, having them winterized. The provider will have that frequency of looking at the carts, but some things would have to be identified per cart, and then that would be communicated to the manufacturer provider. So they would have to play a role in maintaining those carts throughout this period for the benefit of the golfers.
Please. Yeah. You said that the actual fee is about $145,000 around there per year. So that would be a total of, for 4 years, about $580,000. And you did mention that last year there was about 26,000 rounds of golf, where most of the golfers up there use carts. So that would probably bring in close to $2 million during revenue.
So the 26,000 carts that were rented, it estimated around a little bit over $500,000 in revenue last year.
Per year. And over 4 years, that would be close to $2 million, am I correct? And the actual lease would be something around $580,000 for 4 years, am I correct?
Correct.
So that's a pretty good chunk of money to put back into the enterprise fund.
Correct.
Well, I'm looking forward to the new cards. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Punzo. Alder Furlow, then Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for getting this to us before the first payment is due. Appreciate that. But what I didn't see, and maybe it was in the package and I missed it, I did look through the lease. So we're going from a 3-year to a 4-year.
Correct.
Is this more cost effective to do it 4 years instead of 3?
Yes, the 3-year lease payment was about a little bit under, right around $30,000 more per year for the shorter time duration.
And it makes sense to go from 75 cars to 80 cars because of increased
demand, definitely.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. Next is Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question stems around the partnerships for this plan. And what is your clientele? And do you have partnerships related to serving the youth and our children in, for example, the Dixwell Q House and other related And how are they helping in terms of the cost? Thank you. Thank you.
Are you asking if there's a different rate schedule for young golfers versus adult golfers?
I'd like to know who are benefiting in reference to this.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I'd like to see how many of our residents in our city are benefiting. For example, I heard my colleague is participating in these events to see. And also if there's a partnership, as he indicated, these carts are properly maintained, they're winterized, but if they're looking at more modern equipment and parts, maybe there's some in reference, some more monies in reference to this project, that we don't have the whole, that what we're going to enter is a part of the whole. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so before you answer, I'll just note that the Ollie Memorial Golf Course Enterprise Fund will be for us in the course of the budget cycle. So broader questions about the broader operations of the golf course and its kind of benefit to the community, we ought to save for that time. But I think your question does raise the issue about young users of the golf course and how they're charged for use of carts, and there's restrictions on their use of carts, like do you have to have a driver's license to use the carts, etc. Because I think we want to keep the question focused on the carts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
But youth, that's an interesting topic to touch on. Thank you.
Definitely. So what was great about this past fall about actually inviting folks to join in the new renovations that have happened at the golf course. There is actually what's pretty cool is a simulator room where students and folks can learn the game. Youth can get more involved in the game, playing in one of the rooms. Then there's also the Wilbur Cross Golf Course team plays that on Memorial Golf Course, and Hill House Golf Course team does. There is a golf pro who does play and give lessons there. And I know that there is also expanding youth engagement. There's a First Tee program that is historically partnered with Youth and Recreation and to bring local students to learn the game of golf. So there is definitely a lot.
And do they drive the carts? How do the youth interact with the carts? I'm trying to keep it on the carts.
Keep it on the carts, yes. I would have to double check that. I'm not exactly sure, because I think to actually rent the carts, it is an adult. Need driver's license.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Rodriguez. Further questions from colleagues about this proposed lease agreement achieved through a consortium of sorts with a manufacturer based in Georgia? Any further questions? I'll just note for the record that I know that the Hill House Golf team plays there because my son was on that team a couple of years ago and had a great time at the course. I don't think I have any other questions. Anybody else? Seeing none, you're dismissed, and we'll see if any member of the public wishes to come and testify on this item. This is a public hearing item. Is there a member of the public who wishes to testify on this proposed lease agreement? And for a second time, a member of the public wishing to testify on this proposed lease agreement. And finally, third call, anybody want to testify on this agreement? Seeing none, we're going to move to the next item. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item is a proposed reclassification of 2 positions within the Labor Relations Division of our administration. And we invite the presenters to come forward, or the presenter to come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Wandella Alfatti, 33 Cold Spring Drive, Bloomfield, Connecticut. I am the labor director. And before we get started with my reclassifications, I just wanted to correct the record. There are 3 pending contracts. 3 contracts currently being negotiated. And 3 other contracts that will expire in 3 months that we've already received demanded bargain on, and that we are gearing up to negotiate those contracts. So in 3 months, we'll have 6 contracts. I don't see the fire contract settling anytime soon. So that's going to be challenging, just as the police contract was, in my opinion. We thank you for having me and hearing this reclassification application before you. We've had our office. The Office of Labor Relations consists of 1 attorney at the moment, and that would be me, and 1 labor research associate that has been there for the past couple of years. Our other attorney retired in December, the end of the year. We have attempted to fill, not just his position, but we've attempted to fill another position in the office, and it's been vacant for 2 years. So we've been struggling, the 2 of us, to do all of the labor work for the city for the last 2 years. And now we're down to 1 attorney. So I've attempted to figure out a creative way to see if I can get, we all know why these positions aren't being filled. Let's be real. We can't afford to pay the kinds of expertise that we need. Labor is a unique area in the law, and it's difficult to fill the positions, and it has been for, it's been difficult to fill them for the past 4 years since I've been here, to be quite frank. So I attempted to restructure the positions, essentially shifting the monies so that creating a senior labor relations counsel position that's going to pay roughly $11,000 or $12,000 more than the current position, and reducing the other labor relations attorney's position down to a labor relations associate position. And essentially the difference between the 2 is that the labor relations associate's position does not require a law degree. So in essence, they won't need to go into court and practice because you need a license. Many of the administrative agencies that we appear before, many of the labor associates, they do not have a license to practice law, but their expertise obviously is in the labor area, and so they're quite adept at doing labor work in the state. So we are hoping that with this shift, it's essentially cost neutral. So it's not costing, in fact, it's saving the city a few dollars by doing this, and that we can attract at the higher rate of $138,000, which is on the lower end of the high rates. We're hoping that this will make a difference, that we can attract a qualified senior labor relations person into the office, and that will shift some of the responsibilities from myself, so that I continue to not only negotiate these contracts, but do all of the labor work that's required in the city. And that's discipline, advising all the departments. It can be discipline from a verbal warning to termination. So that is the goal, and I'm hoping that that's going to work. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. And before I take questions from committee members, I'd like to recognize Alder Friend Douglas, who has joined us. So the queue is open now for questions from colleagues on this item, with request to reclassify 2 positions within the Labor Relations Division of our government, our local government. Questions from colleagues. Alder Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. It's good to see you for your presentation. Just I got a little confused. I think I'm confused with the titles. So one is being changed from labor relations staff attorney to counsel.
Senior labor relations counsel.
Senior, okay. And that counsel, they're not required to be an attorney?
No, they are. It's a senior labor relations counsel. The second position, removing the attorney
To
moniker
associate.
to associate.
Gotcha.
Many of the labor relation associates or union representatives out there, several of them are not licensed attorneys, and it's an area that is they're paid a little bit more. They're paid a little more than the city pays, so trying to attract them is quite difficult. But we believe that we can, and hopefully we will be able to. I'm always optimistic. I'm always recruiting or attempting to recruit, but pretty much I hear the same things all the time. It doesn't, the level of work and the intensity of the work and the volume of the work in comparison to the salary is what is making it difficult to recruit for these positions.
And you did say that, you said it twice and I read it 3 times, so 5, I should understand it by now. And it looks like the difference of these 2 salaries kind of net out.
They do.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Furlong. Further questions from colleagues on this request to reclassify positions? Alder Wingate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What other avenues, thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
What other avenues have you been using to attract such wonderful positions?
Well, aside from advertising, there's a network of labor relation attorneys in the state of Connecticut who pretty much all know each other, so we're sort of recycling the same people. We compete with the state. We compete with the labor boards in the state. We compete with law firms, and we really can't compete with law firms for obvious reasons. But we are now going to have to venture into the law schools to maybe attract graduates. And I know that the law firms are also doing that. The law firms are also having a difficult time recruiting lawyers in the labor genre. So we're going to be competing. We're hopefully the labor associate position, perhaps getting someone who's about to graduate law school, who has an interest in labor law. We are not adverse to bringing them into the Office of Labor Relations and training them. That obviously on the lower end of the salary scale. The danger with that is that once you train them and they get the skill and they take those skills someplace else. So it's a balancing act, and we do the best we can.
Thank you for that. I do have one more. I just want for clarification for myself. The difference in salary between these 2 positions will be $11,000.
Well, the difference, the reduction from the labor attorney's position was essentially $12,000. So our retired attorney was being paid $127. $127,302. So the range for the labor relations associate position is $95 to $115. That's the range. So if I was able to recruit someone in the high end, that's a savings of $12,300. The senior labor relations counsel's position, that goes from a $127 to $138. So that's essentially $11,000 difference on the higher end. I'm assuming, I'm really sure that if I were able to recruit someone that is an experienced labor lawyer, they're not going to want to come in at 127, and that perhaps I can attract them at 138 because I can say something like it's closer to 140, something along those lines. We have excellent benefits in the city, and we're hoping that that is going to assist us in recruiting for these positions. The salary plus benefits, that's always something that we try to build upon. I think the benefits in the city of New Haven for our staff is pretty good. Pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you for your creativity with this situation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sir Chair.
Thank you, Alder Wingate. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. Are these positions currently vacant? They're currently vacant at this time? Now, with the new salary that you're trying to attract, salary and benefits and everything, what does that figure come up to? Or is it included, the benefit?
The benefits are not, this is salary.
Yeah.
Benefits include things like health insurance, you know, those kinds of things. I would say benefit, the average benefit on a position such as this is probably around 30,000, 30,000.
So that would be 25 or 30,000 added to the salary,
That's right.
the whole package, different figure then.
Roughly. But then our budget people are sitting right there, they can tell me better. I just negotiate the benefits, I hope.
Okay. Right, but it's not one flat figure, it'll move, the amount will move according to the
Yeah, but-
overall benefit package.
But when you're looking at your salary, when somebody makes you an offer, you're not thinking, you know, if I had the benefits to that, you know, maybe it's more like 160. That's kind of like an underlying thing that you try to sell. You know, you sell to, like when I negotiate the contracts, I try to sell that to the unions, you know. Here are your benefits. Your benefits are great. If you went someplace else, you get not so good benefits. And so maybe it offsets the lower salary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hamilton, and you raised a good point from a budgetary perspective, which is that unlike other organizations that include benefit costs in the departmental budget for its personnel, the city does not. It aggregates all those benefit costs into a central kind of structural account. And so all those costs are aggregated. At Yale, for example, where I work, there's a fringe rate.
Right.
So a person costs $1 salary, and the person for a 34, 35 position might also cost 75 cents on that dollar for their benefits. And so the department has to include those figures in the departmental budget. The city doesn't do it like that. It's all those benefit costs are kind of structural costs that are elsewhere in the budget.
But we sort of know what, those of us that are negotiating contracts, that are doing the budget, we sort of know what those costs are, and that helps us in our negotiations. We know what the expense, what the line items are. We have it here. We're always thinking about it as we're at the negotiation table when we're talking about salaries and benefits.
You're right to point out that every filled position could incur additional costs from like an incurred claims perspective. Because a vacant position, there's nobody getting doctor's visits from a vacant position. Whereas a filled position, there is somebody having visits and getting prescriptions and using services that actually cost money. So. Thank you, Alder Hamilton. Further questions from colleagues on this item? I have a quick question for you. It's kind of minor, but when I was reading the order, I noticed that the first whereas clause is about transfers, which there's no transfer here because there's none needed. So it made me think, well, probably originally you felt like there was going to be a transfer that was going to be needed. Is that correct?
We did initially think that.
Okay, but it worked out that you didn't
Just
need
being
one.
creative, restructuring,
So
moving the money around.
So perhaps you thought about raising one position without lowering the other one, but then you realized if we lower the other one, we can avoid a transfer. Gotcha. Okay. Great.
Oh, you calculated it already?
It's in our packet, actually. It's $1,600 and something dollars. Further questions from colleagues? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Is there a member of the public who wishes to testify on this item? Any member of the public wishing to testify on this proposed reclassification of two positions in the Labor Relations Division? And for a third time, any member of the public wishing to testify, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll conclude this evening with the monthly financial report for the month of January 2026.
Hello?
Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Shannon McHugh, 925 Florida Road. Water Agreement. Okay, well, this is our, okay, this is the monthly report for January, and as you can see, we are anticipating a deficit. I would like to say this is very conservative because we are holding some of the general funds. Basically, we're holding it, so it looks like it's an expenditure. So it's very conservative at this moment, but we do see pressure, and that is not conservative. That is a fact. So right now, in terms of the general fund, we're looking at a $9.8 million deficit. I will say, based on the last projection I got from the Board of Education, and they're updating their estimates. This was the last one, and sometimes there's a little bit of a lag for when I get the next one. But at the time when we did this, and it's also, the January report was a while ago, so it was $8.8 million projected deficit from the Board of Education. They did think that at the time I was told that they were being conservative as well, but they would actually receive some revenue for transportation and for tuition payments, which are not reflected. So once that revenue came in, it could bring that number down. I'm sorry, I have 8.5 in here. So we did adjust it a little bit. It was 8.8 last time, I believe, or something close to that. But it's in that ballpark. And the other spending overages are in IT. That's based on current projections. We think that number peaked up a little bit since then. That they will actually go a little bit higher. It would be a bigger deficit than $745,000. Public safety, PSAP was running a little bit over, and that was mostly based on spending trend and a little bit of overtime, but it's a small number. The fire department, we're anticipating that it'll be a little bit over again, and I believe it was overtime spending. But it's still early to tell, and we do have a budget hold on some of the expenditures. So when we put that back into the budget, it would could cover that. Debt service, we have a negative $500,000. That is for financing costs for the GANs and some other little overages. Developmental and operational subsidies, it's just peaking up a little bit above budget there. I can't even remember this myself. It's just exceeding the budget slightly. Self-insurance is up. It's up $2.6 million over the budget. Number's been fairly consistent there. We don't expect it to go up much more. And then for this purpose, I put in $8.5 million for this projection. It's a projection, and it's hard to say exactly, and it's based on conversations and numbers that are run. So that's where we put it as of January. As far as revenues, other license permits and fees were coming in above budget by $100,000 or so. Investment income's running a little slow. And we had it at negative 1.2 million during December. We think it's doing a little bit better than that, so now we have it at negative $150,000. But we do know that it's going to come in a little bit shy of budget projection based on what we're seeing. And then the state grants and pilots are over budget because, as you know, we got the appropriation after the budget had passed. And so that is shown, I show here as overage, although it is being set aside for, 3 million of that is set aside for assigned fund balance for educational purposes. So overall, the general fund projection at this point in time is 9.8. The health medical fund, was about $3 million over. Again, that one's a little bit hard to project because revenues come in. We get revenues in that fund after, so they're not always booked in, at the same time. But we do think there's a little bit of pressure there, just based on the trend. It's trending a little bit above the pace that it did last year. So based on this projection, it's about a $12.5 million projected deficit. Again, it's conservative. We still have all of those. We did freeze spending. We believe there's about $9 million that we would likely put towards, the end of year transfer. And then, yeah, that's That's basically where we're at right now.
Thank you for that presentation.
Yes, I wish I had better news, but we're doing everything we can to try to mitigate that. And I do believe this is the worst case scenario. I think we'll do better than this, but I just want it to reflect what we do know at this point, the 8.5 for the Board of Education. The revenues are doing pretty well though. I mean, we are seeing a little bit of uptick in the delinquent taxes. I don't know that it'll exceed budget. It probably will. We're being conservative on that number. But we'll keep tracking and we'll keep the spending freeze on, and we hope to have money left to put back in at the end of the year.
And one of our 2 winter storms happened in January.
That is correct, yes.
Not the second and bigger one.
Right. That'll show up in the next.
That'll show up in February.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Questions from colleagues
About this monthly financial report.
for January 2026? Questions from colleagues about this financial report? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody from the public who wishes to testify about this item, the monthly financial report for January 2026? Anyone from the public wishing to testify on this item? And for a third time, anyone from the public wishing to testify on this or any of the 3 items we've heard so far this evening? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to close the public portion of this meeting.
Second.
And motion's been made to close the public portion and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. The public portion is closed.
Mr. Chair, I move item number 3 favorably.
Second.
Item 3 has been moved favorably and seconded. This is the 4-year lease agreement for golf carts. Discussion. Alder Punson.
Yeah, it's, they're well-deserved. Club car is a great golf cart. I've been fortunate enough to use them now and then, but the golf course manager and the enterprise fund is gonna blossom because they're doing a great job up there. More and more people are wanting to play up there. It's really, and to mention about youth, they have the first tee. They also run programs for parents and children so that the parents can drive the car. They block out time. So they are reaching out to the community and they're doing some really nice things up there. So, I'm all in favor of this lease. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Punzel. Further discussion of this item, Alder Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of this item. I think that we have a responsibility if we want to continue to provide a service to our residents and others. We have a responsibility to make sure that we keep up with the times when it comes to the resources that are needed in order to, in this instance, play golf. I'm happy to hear from my colleague that there are ongoing efforts to bring children into the fold of the golfing industry, which as time goes on, maybe over the course of this next 4 years, these children will get older and start to drive these golf carts. And so we really have a responsibility to make sure that we have systems, cars that are basically new. So our young people, older people, whomever, don't have issues and they can just take the time, enjoy themselves during golfing instead of having issues with the carts that are supposed to provide them with support in order to play golf. So I am in support of this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Alder Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair Mark Johnson. I'm in support of the item as well. Having new golf carts will make a nice, more attractive golf course and the experience for golfers. I think it'll be a positive thing, and I support the item. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alder Hamilton. Any further discussion of this item? I'm going to speak in favor as well, but I'm also going to point out some edits that are needed. So I move to amend this item.
Chair, I make a motion.
I moved it.
I move.
Second.
Second.
Okay, the motion to amend has been made and seconded, and here's the thing. The first whereas clause says, whereas the New Haven Parks Department owns, manages, and oversees. My amendment would remove the words New Haven Parks Department and replace it with the City of New Haven, because it's the city that owns the golf course and not the park department. And so if you replace the New Haven Parks Department with the words the City of New Haven, then in the 1, 2, 3, 4th, 5th whereas clause, where it says whereas the Parks Department, you need to have the New Haven Parks Department. So my amendment replaces the New Haven Parks Department with the words the City of New Haven in the first whereas clause, and it adds the words New Haven in front of the words Parks Department in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas clause. That's my amendment, just to tidy up some factual inaccuracies. Discussion of this motion to amend this item. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion carries. The item is amended. Further discussion of the motion of the item as amended. Further discussion of the item as amended. Seeing none, all in favor of the favorable recommendation, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It will move forward favorably.
Mr. Chair, I move item number 4 favorably.
Second.
Item 4 has been moved and seconded. This is the reclassification, labor division. Discussion of this item. Alder Punzo.
Mr. Chair, I see that, the need for these two positions, and I understand how difficult that it could be to get, people in those positions, but it's really not a big price differential, so I'm definitely in favor of this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Punzo. Next on the queue is Alder Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in support of this item. It is hard when you work for a municipality and our funding sources are somewhat limited, and people go to school to get these type of jobs to make money. And so, but we need services, and so I'm very happy with the city and their way of trying to restructure the language in order to get staff, because these positions have been open, it sounds like for the last year or 3 years. And so hopefully this restructuring of the language, the changing of these titles will provide us with great candidates who can come to the city and provide excellent work. So again, I am in support of this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Further discussion of this item. Further discussion of this item, Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am in support of this item. Having a senior labor relations counsel is very significant to the work that this department has to do, and having an associate is also significant because of all the work that has to be done to prepare the cases that come before them regarding labor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Rodriguez. Further discussion of this item. I'm going to say that I'm in favor of this item, but I don't think we need the first whereas clause. So I move to amend the item to eliminate the first whereas clause.
Second.
Discussion of the motion to amend, which has been seconded. I'll call on myself as the maker. It's not the end of the world to keep it in, but you're referencing a portion of the ordinance that is irrelevant because there's no transfer requested in this item. And so why would you have a whereas clause referencing language that's irrelevant to the request for forth? And I encourage colleagues to vote yes on this amendment to strike that first whereas clause. Any further discussion of this amendment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Discussion of the item as amended. Any further discussion of the item? Seeing none, all in favor of moving it forward with a favorable recommendation, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It will move with a favorable recommendation. And before a motion to adjourn is appropriate, let me just remind colleagues and everyone in attendance that, yes, Oh, good point. Alder Punza.
Mr. Chair, I move to read and file item number 5.
Second.
This motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion of this, moving it forward as a reading file? Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. It will be recommended to the full board that it be read and filed. And now, my announcement. Thank you so much, everyone. Just a reminder to everybody that the next meeting of this committee will be on Thursday, March 19th, 6 p.m. here in Chambers. It will feature our first public hearing on the mayor's proposed budget. It will also feature our first group of departmental workshops, including the Board of Alders or Office of Legislative Services, the Mayor's Office, the Assessments Office, the Clerk, Register of Voters, Corporation Council, the Fair Rent Commission, the Finance Department, and the Office of Performance Management Grants. So, action-packed next meeting on the 19th with the public hearing and departmental workshops. Seeing none of any further discussion, go ahead, Alderman Punza.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.